Everyone wants to build towards financial freedom and get there as quickly as possible. However, are you skipping financial basics to get there? Also, are you chasing shiny trends and forgetting about financial foundation? Those are the questions that we are going to be addressing today in today's video. It's about getting back to basics, not getting too fancy before we have the basics down, right? So you're not going to knit a sweater right away. You're going to just start basically trying to make like a little pot holder or something, right? That's your usual basic thing that you start when you're knitting. Don't know, I don't knit, but I would think that that would be easier than doing a sweater or a hat or a stuffed animal, right? So we're going to talk about getting back to those basics and why those basics can be really, really key to success. And this video was inspired by, I've been noticing a trend by people getting into these situations where they have to make a switch quickly. You know, they have to move jobs, or they have to move locations, or they have to make a change that they weren't expecting necessarily. And they're kind of stuck going, ugh, where am I going to get the money to do X, Y, and Z? And this is a problem when we skip those foundations. I try to get people to do, and they don't want to do it because it's not fancy, it's not fun, it's not making you feel good, that ego boost, right? These are boring. Nobody wants to do boring anymore, but boring is the key to it. I tell you it is, okay? So we're going to get into all of that. But before we jump in, for all of those of you who have been here before and are joining us again, welcome back. We're happy to have you. Thank you so much for your support. For anybody that is new, hi, welcome. I am Lisa. I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. I've been a financial advisor for many, many years, over 14 years at this point, and I just love helping people work through their financial problems, but sometimes get to the bottom line of their financial future. And I love helping people retire early if that's what they want, work out those numbers, make them feel secure. Maybe they don't ever want to retire, and that's okay. And how do we make sure that they are set up in a way that they can access money the way that they need to? That's this kind of stuff I love doing. So if that sounds like your jam, stick around. That's what we talk about. All right, so if that's your jam, that doesn't sound like me. Not sure why I said that, but that's okay. We're going to move forward. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is defining what wealth or financial freedom means to you. Most people skip this step, and if you are a regular here, you know what I'm going to say. It is about knowing your end game. What are we trying to get to? People often will not tell me that, and I don't know why. Is it triggering some kind of self-consciousness? I just don't know what it is, but people don't want to tell me what the end game is for them. They want to talk about, oh, well, I want to be financially free. Well, what does that mean? And they don't seem to want to get into details. And the details are where you can work things out so that you're not stuck in a pickle when it happens. So looking at wealth is different for everybody. Don't take your friend John's definition of being wealthy and say, well, that's what I want. Is that really what you want? Maybe you want to do more than John. John, I think, is the name I just used. Maybe you want to do more than John does. Maybe you want to do less than he does. Maybe, you want to go live in Australia for a year in retirement, and he has zero interest in doing something like that. You've got to think for yourself. This is not about the lemmings following each other. This is about your story. When you sit at the end of your life, what are you going to want to achieve? And that's what financial freedom can do for you. So you've got to have written down measurable goals to understand how much are we trying to save to? What is the different income streams that are going to be coming to you in retirement or in financial freedom? What do you want? What do you see as financial freedom for you? Some people, I was talking to a lady on a podcast, she was asking me questions, and she said Her financial freedom would be to be able to sit out and grill and have a beer every night. I'm like, that sounds fantastic. That is what she wants, because she travels, she does all that. She doesn't want that. She said, that's, coach people on the side and do that every evening. That would be her goal. And maybe that's not your goal, and that's okay. So, okay. So getting to the core of a really good financial foundation is the next thing we're going to talk about. So these are 3 rules that are basic. You're going to roll your eyes because you're going to go, Lisa, I know. But we don't do them. We don't do them. It's like having that little black dress in your closet that you never use, and then you say, I have nothing to wear. Okay? These are important staple of your financial wardrobe. Okay? One is spend less than you make. I know. I can hear you guys saying, I know that rule already. I know. We're going to talk about this. So eliminate high interest debt quickly. Credit card debt, things like that need to go fast. They are draining you. You need to not have that anymore. 3, save and invest consistently, even if it's in small amounts. So you're going to spend less than you make, save more, and put it into things that are going to be growing with inflationary rates at least. And we're going to get rid of debt. That's the key. Not all debt, obviously. If you want to have your home mortgage and things like that, that's one thing. I have chosen not to do that in my planning, and I'm happy to go through that with you someday if you want to. But getting rid of high interest debt, like credit card debt, school loans, those kind of things, we got to get rid of that stuff as quickly as possible. And the reason I bring up these 3 core values is that we don't do them. We don't do them enough. And if you could just focus on one of them this year, maybe it's spend less than you make, you're automatically going to be able to save and invest consistently because you're going to have money left over from that time, Eliminating debt is very difficult. It is. But there are ways to do that alongside the other 2. These 3 things should be the top of your list when it comes to your financial foundation. And without them, you can crumble very easily. The reason we say foundation is obviously you want a good foundation for any house. If the foundation is faulty, the house starts to do this, and we don't want that. Okay, the next thing we're going to go into is building an emergency fund. Okay, everybody hates talking about an emergency fund. Oh, I don't want to talk about emergency fund. It is the key to your success. It is. It is the difference between you living paycheck to paycheck and not. I don't care how much you have in your retirement accounts and everything else. If your car needs a $3,000 tune-up, do you know how you're going to pay for that? Is it slapping it on a credit card and going, I'm going to figure it out? Or is it slapping it on a credit card and saying, I'm going to pay that baby off as soon as I get home? That's the difference. That's the difference. Going, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this, and I have a solid plan and it's going to get paid off. That is the key. And people don't like talking about emergency funds. They keep like 10 grand and they say, that's plenty of money for me to keep it as an emergency fund. Not if you're making 20 grand a month. I know there's not a lot of people doing that, but there are. If you're making 6 grand a month, it's also not enough. I say the minimum is 3 months. Really, the minimum is 3 to 6 months. I think people should have more cash than they have. I think a lot of people go, 3 months is enough. I think 3 to 6 months. 6 months, for a lot of people is the right number. Because as soon as you have cash in the bank ready to go, if there is some kind of an emergency or something that comes up, and what if it's not an emergency? What if it's your friend comes to you and says, I want to go to Paris at Christmas, and right now I'm filming this like a week before Christmas. Could you say yes without having extreme guilt of how you're going to pay for it, or that, YOLO, you only live once, I'll figure it out? Do you have a solid plan to say, yeah, I can go, let's do it? That's the difference. We always think of an emergency fund as something like, ugh, but it could be on the verge of something wonderful. It could be the down payment of another house if you get transferred to a different state for a better job. You know, maybe we don't want to sell the house in Pennsylvania to move to California. And now I have the option because I have some cash. I have some liquidity to be able to do that and keep that house because I love this house and I want to come back to it. Or wouldn't it be a good income property? I've always been considering something like that. You have choices. Emergency funds and liquidity give you choices, okay? So many of you will say, well, you said 6 months is kind of the minimum. What would be the maximum? I think a year, maybe a year and a half. If we get to 2 years of cash, it's too much. And then you've also got to consider, what is cash, right? Is it sitting in your bank account getting 0.2%, or is it, you know, a high yield savings account getting about 3.5% right now? There's a big difference in that. Am I saying that everybody should be in a high yield savings account? No, because that's personal planning and we need to have an actual conversation where I get to know your situation before I tell you that. But your money can't be sitting under the mattress in this case. It does have to be doing something. You know, maybe it's a U.S. Treasury. Maybe it's a I-bond. I don't know. I have no idea what's the right thing for you. It wouldn't be an I-bond because that's not as liquid as what we're talking about. But there are lots of different options for cash now, and we should have conversations about that. Cash does not have to be boring, but it does give you the availability to make switches in life easily, to do YOLO and go with your friend to Paris in a week. That's the difference. And people don't realize that the cash, and not just the cash, but also being able to use some of it and build it back up again. You have an immense amount of control in your life when you can do that. In my opinion, that is really the seedlings of financial freedom. If you have this ability to use your cash for fun now, then you rebuild, and then you have more fun, and then isn't that kind of financial freedom? I think so. A lot of people don't do stuff because they don't have the money to do it. Don't be those people. Have the money to be able to do what you want when you want. All right, start investing early. We all had that grandparent. I actually didn't. None of my grandparents told me this, but we've all heard that story where grandpa told me to put away money and invest as soon as I got, as soon as I could. And it's because the older generations had a different feeling than we did. They believed in pay yourself first and live in the means of what else is out there. We don't have that mentality. We say, oh, I need to pay all my bills, and then whatever's left over is what I save. But the older generation, like the World War II generation, did not have that idea. They had the idea of you pay yourself first. Savings, it's investing. It's that goes first. And we don't have that anymore. So you should save and invest a little bit each month, even if it's $5, $10, $20, $25. It can build into something else. Do you want to keep saving $25 a week for the rest of your life? No, I mean, it would be better if you could increase that. However, if you had $25 you were saving a week, you're in a lot better place than if you weren't doing that. A lot better. So don't make it so it's these big hurdles that you can't get to. Instead, just start. Just start, and you will start to see it build, and it will get you so excited. You will find ways to save more money. You will. It gets very, very fun to do that. And I think people say, well, if I invested it, I don't know where to put it, what kind of investments to do. There are plenty of systems out there that will help you invest it with very little or no cost. Not people, you're not going to get planning with it, but there's things like that. Or you could just take a look at, index funds or low cost ETFs funds. Those could be a great way to get started. You do want to know what your risk is. You want to have some understanding of that, but at the same time, getting going is the key, really. And we will figure out the allocation and stuff as we go. Don't put it all on red if you don't want to do that. But, do I say start with a single stock? I don't for most people. I would say, if you're just wanting to invest and you understand that there's risk involved with this S&P 500, there's NASDAQ, different ones out there. You can do bond funds that are more in line with, fixed income kind of thing. There are plenty of different indexes for you to look at that you could just get started in. And then educate yourself as time goes on so you understand what your risk is. And all those places, Fidelity, Schwab, all of them that have the little, I will help you invest it. They do have people on hand. Call them, ask them what your risk is. Ask them what the downturn of the S&P 500 was in 2022, in 2008, in 2020 during the pandemic part of 2020. That kind of thing. Ask them what these things did. You can Google that. Yahoo Finance is a great tool for that too. Educate yourself though, but don't let the education get in the way of starting. Even if it's sitting in the money market fund at Fidelity, Schwab, TD Ameritrade, whatever, you still are going to be getting some kind of compounding on it as you wait. So don't wait, just kind of get going. Because if you wait and start making excuses, you're never going to do it. Avoid the get rich quick traps. These are trendy things. I would say real estate in some respects is one of these things too. These trendy ways of building wealth. You might be wealthy on paper, but you don't feel it in your bank account. Is that truly the kind of wealth you want to do? That's my question for a lot of people who have tons of income properties that none of them are paying them any kind of income at all. Well, it will eventually. Yeah, but that's in 30 years. I'm not one to say don't do income properties. I'm just saying that to put it all into this and expect this to be your plan is I just think that's crazy. I do. I just think that doesn't work out for a lot of people. You need to have that balance of savings, investing, income property, or real estate. That could just be in your own home even. You need to have this balance that works for you rather than just all in on income properties. Real estate can be a lot trickier than people think it is. So don't get into the day trading. Don't get into the speculative stocks. Don't get into all this stuff without doing heavy research, figuring out if that's what you want, if you want to take that risk on, because I guarantee most of the time you're just going to decide not to take that risk. And understanding that plain old vanilla indexing can maybe be better for you in the long run. I've had plenty of people who've talked to me, luckily not clients, but plenty of people who have heard what I do and tell me about, their spouse that day traded their whole investments away, and it turns into a mess. So just make sure you really understand that stuff before you start saying, oh, so-and-so made 35 grand a day doing day trading or did this course or whatever. I just think that if you aren't doing the basics for yourself, that's just a get rich quick kind of thing. And I don't think those work at all for people, to be frank. Okay. And there's so much risk that people don't consider on that kind of stuff either. And it just scares me. All right. And then track and adjust your plan. Flexibility. We talk about flexibility a lot. That switch that happens sometimes in life. How are you going to deal with that switch? How are we going to deal with liquidity needs? How are we going to deal with changes in health, changes in income, changes in just what you want in life, right? We change what we want in life all the time. What I thought I wanted for my career 5 years ago is totally different than what I want now. Totally different. It just is. And life works like that. And will in 5 years it be a little different? It probably will. And so, you just have to realize that life changes and your plan needs to change with it. And how much wiggle room do you have in that plan to make those shifts happen, to make those shifts in life happen. All right. So to summarize, sticking to the basics before exploring advanced strategies can be what makes or breaks your financial freedom journey. It really can. Because those basics are what you fall back on in bad times. Those kind of like advanced strategies might push you forward faster, but if you need to fall back, those basics are the things that are there for you. So what's one step that you could take if you're one of those people and you go, I kind of skipped all that stuff and now I'm regretting it? What is one thing you can implement that we talked about that will start to build that financial foundation better for you? Because just because you've built the structure doesn't mean, it's not like an actual house where, like, what are you going to do? Just tear down the whole house? Of course you're not going to do that. But with your financial plan, you can start building your financial foundation, even if you've skipped over that before. You could start today, and it's totally fine. So remember that fancy plans come later. Build a solid base first. And if you skip to the fancy, revert back to some of the basics and you will be very happy in the long run. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this helped you and made you think a little bit more. And until next time, take care, have fun out there, and we will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.